Afternoon, brethren. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for saying prayers for me this year and being concerned. As most of you know, I had open heart surgery this year, and I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. The title of my sermonette today is called Sharia Law. Today I would like to talk to you about a growing concern in our lands, in our countries, a concern that most of you are not even aware of. And I know that the people of the United States, Canada, and other parts of the world have no clue to what is happening. And that concern is the legalization of Sharia law and how it will affect the justice system in both the United States and Canada and the rest of the world. First off, I have to state right up front that what I'm about to say may offend some people. We have to understand that our Muslims, brothers and sisters, are not all radical Muslims. There are American Muslims, Canadian Muslims, Australian Muslims, Indian Muslims, English Muslims, and Muslims from all over the world. You have your good and bad people in every race and nationality. As you know, some are more radical than others, and in different countries there are different types of radical groups that we don't even hear of. We as Christians and children of God are to love all of our brothers and sisters, no matter what race, nationality, color, or creed. They are all our brothers and sisters. And you can find this in 1 John 4:20. If anyone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen, how can they love God who they have not seen? And this makes perfect sense. 1 John 3:15. Whosoever hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Again, in 1 John 2:9, whosoever say he is in the light and hates his brother is still in darkness, and they have no part with God. Matthew 5:44, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Yes, we are even to pray for our worst enemies, no matter what race or nationality or color. So this is not to offend our Muslim brothers and sisters, but to expose those radical Muslims who want to take over the world. Those who shout in the streets of Iran and England and other parts of the world, death to America and death to those who oppose Allah. Not just Americans, meaning every single religion on the face of the earth who are not of the Muslim religion or not of the Muslim faith, and anyone who does not believe in Allah. Isaiah 88:1, the King James Version, we need to cry aloud and spare not. Cry aloud and spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet. And in the complete Jewish Bible it states, Isaiah 58:1, shout out loud. Don't hold back, raise up your voice like a shofar. A shofar is the Jewish word for a trumpet. Just as Mr. Trent said in a sermon a while back on political correctness, he stated that we are to speak the truth and not to worry about offending other people. As he stated in that sermon, that people get offended over anything, and that is so true. He said not to sugarcoat anything. We are children of God, should always stand for the truth, and especially for the truth of God's Word. So with that being said, I would like to give you some astounding facts on our countries that you may or may not know. I need to give you these facts in order to lead up to Sharia law. According to the researchers and the so-called think tanks and other sources, in order for a culture to maintain itself for more than 25 years, there has to be a fertility rate of 2.11 children per family. So that's 2 children for every family. A 1.9 never reverses itself. At 1.3 is impossible to reverse itself. For a 1.3 fertility rate to reverse itself, it would take 80 to 100 years to correct itself. As the population shrinks, so does the culture. Across the European Union, 31 countries' fertility rate is a mere 1.38. France is 1.8, England is 1.6, Greece is 1.3, Germany is 1.3, Italy is 1.2, and Spain is 1.1. If these numbers continue as these countries would cease to exist, Europe would cease to exist. But the population of Europe is not decreasing, it's increasing. So with these figures that I just give you, you might ask yourself, well, how is that possible? Well, it is possible because of immigration. And it is also possible because of Islamic immigration. Just in France alone, there are 1.8 per family, but there are 8.1 Muslims per family. There are now more mosques than churches in southern France, according to statistics. In the last 30 years, the Muslim population of Great Britain rose from 82,000 to 2.5 million, a 30-fold increase. In the Netherlands, there is over 1,000 mosques, mostly churches, that have been turned into mosques. The Netherlands, in less than 15 years, will be half Muslim. In Russia, there are over 23 million Muslims. That is a staggering 1 in 5. That's 40%. The entire Russian army will be Islamic, sooner or later. In Belgium, 50% of all newborns are Muslim. The government of Belgium has stated that 1/3 of all European children will be born to Muslim families by 2050. The German government, the first to talk about this, publicly said, the fall in the German population can no longer be stopped. Its downward spiral is no longer reversible. It will be a Muslim state by the year 2050, and this is from the German Federal Statistics Office. There are currently 52 million Muslims in Europe. Within the next 20 years, it is expected to double to 104 million. Canada's fertility rate is a 1.6, far below the 2.1 that is required. In Canada, Islam is the fastest growing religion. In the U.S., the fertility rate is of 1.6. With the influx of the Latino people, it increases to 2.1, the bare minimum. In 1970, there were 1,000 Muslims. In 2008, there were 8 million Muslims. Now, these figures from the U.S. that I have given you, are disputed by some people, and other people agree totally. But I can only give you the facts as I have them. You have to decide whether they are accurate or not. As far as I can see, and according to the information that I have gathered, they are off by a bit. This is a form by Daniel Pipes. You might have read some of his articles from the Middle East Forum. Some of you might have read some of his articles in the past. He's pretty well known. And here's what he has to say on these statistics. How many Muslims in the United States? June the 4th, 2009 update. Defying all we know about this topic, Barack Obama today announced the figure of 7 million American Muslims. In the course of his major speech on Islam delivered in Cairo. Now, there was a great controversy on how many Muslims are in the United States. June the 21st, 2009 update. Obama retreated substantially, though not enough, from his 7 million figure, saying in an interview with the Pakistani newspaper Dawn, we have 5 million Muslims. So he dropped it down quite a bit. And remember, this is in 2009. But he goes on to say, which would make us larger than many other countries that consider themselves a Muslim country. Is Obama trying to say something here? That's for you to decide. Time magazine headline, June the 27th, 2011. Headline, 2.2 billion world Muslims population doubles. By 2030, the global population is set to reach over 8 billion, and 26% of that population will be Muslim. A report from the Pew, P-E-W, Pew Forum on Religion and Public titled, The Future of the Global Muslim Population, projects that the Muslims in the world is set to double to 1.1 billion in 1990 to 2.2 billion in 2030. And that's exactly the same figures that Time magazine gives. Pew projects that Pakistan is set to overtake Indonesia as the country with the largest Muslims, as its Muslim majority population pushes to 256 million. The number in the U.S. will double to over 6.2 million. See, it's dropped again. While Afghanistan Muslims population is set to rise by almost 74%, as the numbers rises from 29 million to 50 million, making it the country with the 9th largest Muslim population in the world. Now you may be asking yourself, well, why did I give you all these figures? Well, here is the reason, and I was absolutely stunned when I read this quote, and this quote is from Muammar al-Gaddafi. Most of you remember this nut job. He was a real terrorist, and he killed a lot of people. Muammar al-Gaddafi of Libya said, there are signs that Allah will grant victory to Islam in Europe. Without swords, without guns, without conquest, we don't need terrorists, and we don't need homicide bombers. The 50+ million in Europe will turn it into a Muslim continent within the next few decades. Muammar al-Gaddafi. How stunning is it? Well, as most of you should know, it is already happening even in our own governments. For instance, Muslim Brotherhood infiltrates Obama administration's 6 American Islamists who work with the Obama administration are Muslim Brotherhood operatives who enjoy strong influences over U.S. policies. And they are Alfie al-Qaddad, Salam al-Magdid, Mohammed Ebi, Omar Mohammed Madid, Rashan Hussein, and Ebi Patel, or Potel. Just on a side note, do you know this famous quote? You see, it's been our misfortunes to have the wrong religion. The Mohammedan religion, which is Islam, too would have been much more compatible to use than Christianity. Why did it have to be Christianity with its meekness and its flabbiness? Adolf Hitler. Again, then we should all in probability have been converted to Islam religion, then the German race would have conquered the world. Christianity alone prevented them from doing so. Adolf Hitler once again. Again, people are more likely to believe a big lie than a small lie. Adolf Hitler again. Here is a quote from Newt Gingrich. The Obama administration is so one-sidedly pro-Islamic that it refuses to tell the truth about the people who are trying to kill us. Now, I am sure that all of you are starting to get the picture. I had to give you this information so that I could lead up to Sharia law. Now, based on the facts that I know and what I have gathered on this information, I can only give you, once again, the facts as I have them. And this is mostly from Muslim people, Muslim women, and people who are terrified of this law. Sharia law will strip women of basic rights. There are no age limits for marriage of girls under Sharia law. Sharia law dictates death by stoning, hanging, and beheadings for crimes such as killing, adultery, and prostitution. Other corporal punishments like amputation of limbs, such as chopping off of hands and feet, floggings, beatings, and various other crimes. You will see that it is a law of hypocritical proportions as far as I can see, according to the studies that I have done. You will see this as we go along. Now I will give you a perspective from a Muslim woman who fears Sharia law. And this is from Noni Darwish, or Darwich. And it's Joys of a Muslim Woman. And here's what she had to say. In the Muslim faith, a Muslim man can marry a child as young as 1 year old and have sexual intimacy with that child, consummating the marriage by age 9. That just blew me away. The dowry is given to the family in exchange for the woman who becomes his slave, and for the purchase of the private parts of the woman to use her as a tie. Now, I had to look up this word dowry because it's not the diary you write in. And a dowry is the property to a daughter at her marriage rather than at the owner's death. A dowry establishes a type of fund, the nature of which may vary widely. So it's all according to how much money the family has, the more that they give at marriage for the daughter. Even though a woman is abused, she cannot obtain a divorce under Sharia law. To prove rape, the woman must have 4 male men. Can't use a woman. Often after a woman has been raped, she is returned to her family, and the family must return the dowry. The family has the right to execute her to restore the honor of the family, and that is called an honor killing. And this goes on in these Muslim countries all over the world, especially in India. It happens almost monthly over there. Husbands can beat their wives at will, and he does not have to say why he has beaten her. The husband is permitted to have 4 wives and a temporary wife for an hour at his discretion. So what happened to prostitution in their law? Because that's what he's using, is a prostitute. The Sharia Muslim law controls the private as well as the public life of a woman. She can't do anything, not until the husband tells her what to do. In the Western world, Muslim men are starting to demand Sharia law so the wife can not obtain a divorce, and he can have full and complete control over her. It is amazing and alarming how many of our brothers, our sisters and daughters attending American universities are now marrying Muslim men, submitting themselves and their children unsuspectedly to Sharia law. So you can see why it's really a concern. And she goes on to say, author and lecturer Noni Darwish says the goal of radical Islam is to impose Sharia law on the world, ripping Western law and liberty in two. She recently authored the book Cruel and Unusual Punishment, and she also wrote the book Terrifying Global Implications of Islamic Law. In her latest book, Darwish warns about creeping Sharia law, what it is, what it means, and how it is manifested in Islamic countries. For the West, she says, radical Islamists are working to impose Sharia law on the world. If that happens, Western civilization will be destroyed. In 20 years, there will be enough Muslim voters in Canada and the U.S. to elect a prime minister or an American president. That's how many Muslims that we're going to have in the future. So now you can see why I give you all these figures at the beginning. The more Muslims that come into this country, the more control they get. Can Sharia law infiltrate our countries? I am sure that there are a lot who would say that it possibly could not happen. Well, don't be surprised if it does. The Muslims are crying about it almost constantly now. It seems to be almost on every newspaper and particularly in every newsstand from time to time. They want Sharia law in the U.S., Canada, Great Britain, and elsewhere in the world, and anywhere they can get it. I will read you a couple of articles from the U.S. and from Canada on Sharia law. A Vancouver Sun journalist, here's what he had to say, and this was June the 8th, 2013, just last year. But the controversy over Sharia law is not going away. I researched 10 major Canadian newspapers and discovered they published almost 1,000 stories in the past year, mostly international, about Sharia law. Michael Cohen at the QMI agency on March 27, 2014, this year. In a shocking decision, it was announced this week that Sharia principles are to become enshrined in the British legal system, with the Law Society of the United Kingdom publishing guidelines for drawing up documents according to Islamic rule. These rules will allow lawyers, for example, to write up Islamic wills, which will have the power to exclude non-believers. So if you're a non-believer and you're married to a Muslim, you don't get anything. And deny women of equal share of an inheritance. The guideline states the male heir is in most cases receives double the amount inherited by a female heir of the same class. Non-Muslims may not inherit at all. And only Muslim marriages are recognized. And Michael says, good old Sharia. In countries where Sharia is central, people live in an oppressive, dark society. In countries where Sharia exists, but it is not central, life is still controlled and intolerant. And Sharia exists in every Muslim country from one degree to another. In Britain, these proposals obviously won't allow beheadings and beatings and stonings, but it does mean that the civil law, as we have known it, has taken a massive step backwards. There is far more in the guidelines, of course, and all of this is horribly regrettable in itself, but also quite terrifying in its consequences. We had to ask ourselves honestly and without fear of physical or political attack what this all means. What begins in Britain tends to influence our nations, in particular English-speaking nations, and especially countries from a British legal precedence and a Commonwealth tradition. In other words, there is a good chance it will come to Canada, and activists are already pushing for it. And boy, are they ever pushing for it in Canada. June 18, 2014, Huffington Post, Sharia law in the U.S., a guideline to what it is and why states want to ban it. North Carolina lawmakers on Wednesday, July the 24th, approved a bill to prohibit judges from considering foreign laws. In their decision, but nearly everyone agrees that foreign laws really means Sharia law or Islamic law. North Carolina now joins 6 other states, Oklahoma, Arizona, Kansas, Louisiana, South Dakota, and Tennessee, to pass a foreign laws bill. A similar bill passed in Missouri by Governor Jay Nixon vetoed it, citing threats to international adoptions. The bill all cites foreign laws because 2 federal courts have ruled that singling out Sharia, as Oklahoman voters did in 2010, is unconstitutional. Stephen J. Beecroft from Chatham Daily News in Canada, May the 26th, 2014. Sharia law receives special treatment. I recently, I was really interested in Bob Ripley's piece in Chatham Daily News on May the 24th about the 27-year-old Sudan physician who is 8 months pregnant with her child. She and her 20-month-old son, Martin, are in prison until she gives birth and nurses the baby. She will then be executed. Now, I don't think that's going to happen in Canada. They send her back to her own country, and then they'll do it over there. We should be aware of how the concept of Sharia law is advancing in Canada on both provincial and local levels. The provincial government of Canada for years have tactfully recognized Sharia law for Canadian Muslims minorities by sending multiple welfare checks to polygamous Muslim men who raise multiple families in Canada. And I know for a fact that people in Canada, just the regular Joe, it's almost impossible to get welfare. But these guys come over, they got multiple families, and they get multiple checks. In 2003, Muslims in Ontario tended to make the provincial government set aside its laws and have only the Sharia law apply to Muslims. After a fierce debate, the Premier eventually stepped in and pushed back against Sharia. Good for him. Efforts by Canadian Muslims to push for Sharia law at the municipal level have met more immediate success. A few years later, a cafeteria in Toronto school was turned into a mosque on Friday afternoon so that the Muslim students could listen to an imam from a nearby mosque and pray towards Mecca. The same scene was repeated in public schools all across Canada. But yet we can't have the 10 Commandments, or we can't have prayer in school, but the Muslims can have it. We are not talking about a minority. In 2011 survey, 62% of the Muslims in Ottawa expressed a desire to live under some form of Sharia law. By contrast, public schools in Canada provide neither facilities for the Christian students to gather and worship, nor kosher food for the Jewish students. It says, makes you wonder, eh? Canadian, eh? This is by Josh Saul for the New York Post. It always comes back to the dinner table with this guy. The 75-year-old Pakistani immigrant convicted in Brooklyn of beating his wife to death because she served him lentils instead of goat should get the minimum sentence, his lawyer argued Wednesday, because the lack of Pakistani food behind bars will be a hardship. His inability to speak English and his inability to have Pakistani food will make his jail time even more difficult than the average inmate. Defense attorney Judy Clark wrote in her court papers seeking the minimum 15 years to life for Noor Hussain. But prosecutor Sabiha Madid countered that Hussain should get the maximum 25 years to life, saying in court, there are no mitigating factors, not age, not inability to speak English, or not the lack of Pakistani food behind bars. Brooklyn Supreme Court Justice Matthew D. Emmett sentenced the whaling killer to 18 years to life behind bars, noting that because of his advanced age, whatever sentence I give is likely a life sentence anyway. So he's out in 2 or 3 years. From the WorldNet Daily, many Palestinian children are taught almost from birth to hate Jews, to glorify jihad. Jihad is holy war. Even to embrace and pursue their own death and martyrdom while attacking Jews. A quick Google search of the word Islam will dominate will give you quite an eyeful. It shows very quickly photos from around the world of Muslims carrying signs and banners that proclaim such things like, freedom can go to hell. Islam will dominate the world. Sharia law, the true solution. So you can see, even the Muslim people fear Sharia law. I have also read from other sources that people in Muslim countries are petrified of Sharia law, especially the women. These are just a few things that our justice system will be up against if Sharia law is passed. But the Muslims will tell you that they are a religion of peace and harmony. Well, I have gathered together just a few quotes from the Quran. I will read them for you, and you can decide for yourself whether they're peaceful or they're hateful. The Quran has both peaceful verses and violent verses that contradict each other. The Quran teaches when two passages contradicts, the one written later supersedes the one written earlier. Quran, Surah 9, verse 5. When opportunity arises, kill the non-Muslims wherever you catch them. Quran, Surah 8, verse 60. Muslims must muster all weapons to terrorize the non-Muslims. 2001, Twin Towers, Pentagon, planes, all weapons. Quran, Surah, verse 2. Quran, Surah 2, verse 191. Slay the non-believers wherever you find them. O you who believe, do not take the Jew and the Christian for friends. They are friends of each other. And whoever among you takes them for a friend, then surely he is one of them. Surely Allah does not guide the unjust people. Surah, verse 51. And the Jews say, Uzay is the son of Allah. And the Christians say, the Messiah is the son of Allah. These are the words of their mouths. They imitate the sayings of those who disbelieved before. May Allah destroy them, how they are turned away. Surah 9, verse 30. And the Jews will not be pleased with you, nor the Christians, until you follow their religion, says surely Allah's guidance. That is the true guidance. And if you follow their desire after the knowledge that has come to you, you shall have no guardian from Allah, nor any helper. Surah 2, verse 120. And whoever does not believe in Allah and His apostles, then surely we have prepared burning fire for the unbeliever. Surah 48, verse 13. So I do not believe in Allah, and I'm sure there's none here that believes in Allah. There are many, many more quotes from the Quran that are similar to these. So you can always go on the internet and you can check it out for yourself. You can get the Quran, and the whole Quran is there, and you can read them. It's unbelievable, some of the stuff that's in there. So the next time you're watching your TVs or iPads and you see Muslims carrying signs and they have such things as behead the man who insults Allah, Islam will dominate the world, exterminate those who slander Islam, be prepared for the real Holocaust. And when you see them stomping on and burning the American flag and dancing in the streets because of a terror attack on the U.S. and the rest of the world, you will know exactly where it came from. September the 15th, 2014, this year. Did you see the shocking display at New York City's Muslims Day Parade? Has anyone seen that? Nobody's seen it. The Muslims have a parade every year. There's been, I don't know how many years it's on the go now, but they're going to continue on it. And they have a parade now every year. And this year at the parade, they had on display the hanging of a woman in the back of one of their trucks on one of the floats. Here's what a newspaper article had to say on the display. It was unclear what the mannequin seen dangling from a noose on the float really meant. They didn't know. It was unclear exactly what it represented, the news article said. Well, I could take a guess at what it meant, exactly what we have just been talking about, Sharia law. They also had men carrying Thai machine guns at the beginning of the parade until authorities told them to put the guns away. So now they're allowed to dance in our streets just like they're allowed to dance at home. And nobody seems to want to stop them. I also watched a special on the Muslim people in the U.S. and Canada, which was aired on CBC, and they all stated that they are either Christian or they are American and Canadian citizens, and they love the life that they now have. But I don't know how many of you have noticed that there are mosques going up everywhere, both in the Canada and U.S. In the Toronto area alone, there are over 50 mosques, and all throughout Canada. It is believed that there is practically a mosque in every community, if not a mosque, then a Muslim center in Canada. But my question is, if most of them are converted to Christianity and they are Canadian and American citizens, then why do they need all these mosques? That's my first question to any Muslim. Why are they allowed to parade in our streets and to display hatred and push their agenda on our countries? Why are they allowed to do this? Nobody seems to want to stop them. And most of these are radicals. Since 9/11, there have been an estimated 14,586 deadly terror attacks carried out worldwide, all by Muslim terrorists. And then the Muslim people wonder why they get a bad reputation. Well, that's exactly why. And it doesn't stop here. This is only the tip of the iceberg. So when you see headlines such as "Spreading Islam Again," "Forcing Islamic Schools on Local Communities," CBC headline, "Public Schools Teaches the ABCs of Islam," CBC once again, "New Islamic Group Wants Sharia for America," Dawn Hall magazine, "Terror's Secret Weapon, Sharia Law," Newsweek, "Islam in America," Maclean's, "Why the Future Belongs to Islam," Daily Express England, "Now Muslims demand full Sharia law." They already have partial Sharia law over there, but now they want full Sharia law. And our good old friend Glenn Beck, "Obama's shocking ties to the Muslim Brotherhood." The Blaze magazine, "Want to know how close the Muslim Brotherhood is to the Obama administration?" The Elaine magazine, "Muslim World Embraces Obama." Then, brethren, you see them dancing in the streets when something happens to America. Remember when the Twin Towers went down? They danced in the streets by the thousands, stamping on and burning the American flag. Brethren, we are living in an ever-changing world. Today, our newspapers, televisions, computer screens, iPods, iPhones, and tablets are all full of shocking and horrible scenes. These Islamic terrorists do in the name of religion. Such things as beheadings, lining up people and executing them right on the spot. No mercy whatsoever. There are executions in the streets, and they go on. They are so common that passerbyers are taking pictures with their iPhones. One guy is shooting him in the back of the head. The other guys are taking pictures. Hangings galore, both men and women. And what they do to the innocent children is just downright shameful. I wouldn't even put anything in here because it's just too much. All you need to do is to do a Google search on your computer, and you can see those pictures that I'm talking about. They're sickening, shameful and sickening. And they do this all in the name of religion and Allah. Pictures don't lie, especially when they come from the news agencies. The The radical Islamic group that I told you about last year at the feast, Boko Haram, has killed over 4,000 Christians this year alone. That was the last count I had in late August this year. And there are countless other groups out there who are doing exactly the same thing. Right now there is an even scarier group out there, and they are called ISIS. You all heard of ISIS in the news lately. And it is said that these people are so fierce that even the Taliban is afraid of them. Can you imagine the Taliban is afraid of another group? They're that fearsome? Just recently, U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel gave classified testimony on Capitol Hill and declared that ISIS is a clear and an imminent threat to the security of the United States. Hagel further warned that ISIS also proposes a threat to U.S. partners in the Iraqi region. Well, of course they would, because that's where all the oil is at. While ISIS members are largely recruited from within Iraq and Syria, the organization is also recruiting Muslims from all over the world to join their jihad. According to the CNN, U.S. officials and intelligence analysis estimates that the group now has more than 10,000 fighters in the region. So ISIS and Islamic radicals, Muslim terrorists, are doing what they usually do, causing murder and mayhem, attacking and threatening people all over the world, and especially the U.S. embassies. All these groups want Sharia law. And if they get the Sharia law, the killings and the stonings and the crucifixions of gays and the wife beatings, wife murders, children's murders, it's going to be accepted. Not fully in the United States and Canada, but it will be accepted, and they would have more control over the women than ever before. Former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair has declared radical Islam as the greatest threat facing the world today. Once again, and I have to state, as I have stated right from the beginning, that there are, of course, Muslims who are non-violent. However, it is totally unfair and indeed unjust to call all Muslims bad people, because they're not. I mean, these groups that they have, they run in the thousands, tens of thousands, but the Muslim people can't help that. There are good and bad people in every single society, and I don't care what society and what part of the world it is, you have your bad people. Brethren, and that is not even to speak about the trouble that is going on in the rest of the world, North Korea and South Korea, Iran, China and the Philippines, Russia and the Ukraine, India and Pakistan, Syria, Israel and the Palestinians, and Dhofar. It is a crying shame what is going on in Dhofar, and nobody knows nothing about it. Nobody's reporting it. The newspapers are not reporting it. There are some 3.5 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance in Dhofar. Over 2 million people remain displaced, including 380,000 people who are newly displaced. And the things that we've been speaking about, Sharia law and the women getting raped and the abuse of the children, it is just unbelievable over in Dhofar. Then we got Afghanistan, and of course, we're back in Iraq, fighting ISIS. Everywhere you turn or everywhere you look, there is something going on in some part of the world, and it is not going to get any better. So, brethren, just remember what Christ taught. Christ spoke of these things in the Olivet prophecies, that there would be wars and rumors of wars. Turn with me to Matthew 24:6. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. There are wars going on everywhere and has been for some time now. Then it says, see that you be not troubled. It is hard not to be not troubled when you see so much going on around you, and especially when you have no control over what is happening. And then it says, for all these things must come to pass. And all these things will come to pass, and I think that it is going to get much worse in the future. But it says, the end is not yet. And 7, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. And 8, all these things are the beginning of sorrows. Can things get even worse? Yes, you bet they can. They can, and I believe that they will. And they're going to get much worse beyond anything that we can even imagine. We have no idea what is coming on this country, Canada, and the rest of the world. We are living in an evil and corrupt world, a world that is headed for complete and utter destruction, a world that is ready to explode. So, brethren, when the Bible tells us to watch it, it means exactly that. We are to watch the Middle East, we are to watch Israel, we are to watch Iran, we are to watch the Muslim radicals, and we are to watch world events. So I'd like to leave you with this one scripture, Isaiah 35:4. Say to those who have an anxious heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, with the recompense of God. He will come and save you. So, brethren, trust in the Lord.